Back to Wiggins.
Back to Wiggins.
Let's go to Telmo in the city. Hi, Telmo. What are you doing?
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Good.
So a couple things just to touch on this topic and what you've been talking about. All day I've been hearing callers, or earlier I heard callers being like, as a fan, they owe me an explanation, blah, blah, blah. And just because you choose to root for a team, you have no investment in it. You have no finance. You choose to do that as a fan. Nobody owes you an explanation. If the company, which is the Warriors, if they're fine with it, obviously I think it's something that's significant enough that his teammates are behind him and there hasn't been any leaks. I thought if it was a goldfish situation, somebody would be like, wink, wink, like, I would go to work if my goldfish died, but there's been none of that. Dibley, to touch on something you said earlier about you've just never been that way where you couldn't get up. I don't want to speak for you or Willard, but I just think generally nobody has as much money in our bank accounts as Andrew Wiggins does, and I don't think I've personally never been in the position where I've been comfortable enough to the times I didn't want to get up and go. I had the luxury of not having to do so because I had to take care of my financial obligations. And I think, honestly, what it comes down to is, like, the Warriors have to make the decision. If they feel it's warranted and if they feel that the upside versus the negative of dealing with this situation is worth it or not, we're going to find out in the end here. But it's been 2 games so far, so I think it's kind of like a Draymond situation where he's getting punished, in this case not punished, but based off of the previous body of work versus, we're kind of like PTSD from last year. But it's been 2 games. If it's 4 or 5 games, like, who cares? We looked at Klay Thompson's struggle, and it had to do with mental health and the place where he was at, not being the player that he's used to being and not putting up the numbers and forcing shots. And we don't want players like that on the court. And you can see that the mental aspect of the game is so huge that they have to have their mind right to contribute.
Okay, Telmo, slow down. Okay, that's a lot of good points, except for I have a question for you. How do you know the Warriors are okay with it?
Because they haven't shown us otherwise.
Can they?
They've had opportunities. They had opportunity. No, they had opportunity at the end of last season to trade him. They had up until the trade deadline to trade him.
Okay, what if they didn't know this was Telmo? What if they didn't know if this was coming? There's zero indication that they knew that this was going to happen last week.
Yeah, but they have what happened last year, and if they were uncomfortable with that,
right? But maybe they're comfortable with it happening once, but not twice.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is right now we're talking about 2 games. We're not talking about 25.
Correct, but are you comfortable with the words that they're using, which is, and do you find this normal in sports, he's gone right now and we have no idea when he's coming back?
Well, yeah, because obviously it's past the trade deadline. There's really nothing we can do about it. And if it was like you guys said, an ACL or an ankle or whatever, it would be an injury he couldn't play with. And having a mental issue can be just as debilitating as having a physical one.
No one's arguing that. What I'm arguing is that your statement is that the Warriors are fine with it, so should we. And I don't know that they are. I have no idea if they are. And the reason I don't know if they are is because they're in a spot post-trade deadline where they have no choice but to have no opinion on this. What is it that they could say? Even if they, I don't take this as, well, they're saying publicly that they're okay with it, so they are. No. Do you know how many people are in that organization? You're telling me the same way we sit here as a radio show and talk about this and have 27 different opinions from 27 different people?
Right.
You think every single member of the Warriors organization is like, okay, no problem. Go ahead and miss the lead up to the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see you next year.
And I know you did it last year too, but no biggie. There's no chance that that's real. None.
They're on the hook for $84.6 million. If he wants to opt into his 3rd-year deal. So he's here for 3 more years if he wants to take his player option, and it's 84.6, and it's not like football where you can just cut a guy and take the cap hit and move on. So if they aren't okay, to your point, Mark, you got to figure out a way to make it so that you can salvage this in some way. And if they are okay, well, it's your prerogative to be okay with it. You're the employer. I'm not. I'm the consumer. And I can feel however I want to feel about it, but ultimately they're going to decide how they deal with this absence. And yes, Telmo's right. It's 2 games. But last year it was 2 games, and then it became 4, and then 6, and then 11, and then 17, and then 25. So Steve Kerr's words to you guys yesterday, you and Grandy, was they don't know when he's going to be back. That feels to me like indefinitely. That doesn't feel like it's going to be soon. It feels to me like it's going to be a prolonged absence.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with compassion for Andrew. I'm not, like, if somebody can't go, you can't go.
Right.
But I'm not going to put thoughts in the Warriors' heads the same way I don't put them in Andrew's heads. So I think it's not like, yes, Telmo had a bunch of good points, but I'm not willing to be like, and the Warriors are great with this. I don't know that at all.
We don't know that at all.
This is big business, and I can promise you there are plenty of press conferences you've listened to through the years from all sports where people throw all kinds of support publicly. And in the background, they're like, hey, bro, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
We saw it with Clay last year. All they did was support Clay. Then we find out after the fact that they sat him down and said, dude, you're gunning and you got to stop.
Exactly.
So that happens. That happens. You ever hear Kyle Shanahan go to a microphone and rip Jimmy G? You think he ever did it behind the scenes?
Maybe tenfold. And when we heard him rip Steve Wilkes and say he knows he can't do that, we all knew at the moment,
that's the end of that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And even though they made it to the Super Bowl and they made it to overtime of the Super Bowl, nobody was surprised at the decision they made because the comments that were made. And you think that Kyle Shanahan might have been even more forceful to Steve behind closed doors than he was to the media?
Oh, God.
Right?
Completely. I'd have been shocked if he stayed. Steven in Oakland. Hey, Steven, what's going on?
Hey, guys, I'm going to take the shots that you really can't. So I'm just going to say it for the whole Bay Area. Andrew Wiggins is mentally weak, and I have 3 reasons why. Number 1, his scouting report. From the very beginning, he has all the tools, but disappears in games. That's mental. Number 2, gamers try to get away from him. LeBron, Jimmy Butler, the Timberwolves. He's been labeled as mentally weak. Number 3, it didn't take 2 months for however sick or they said his dad was. I've seen so many players go through so much and still put it on the line and still make it to play. And I'm not even saying I would recommend players always do that, but I've seen players sacrifice a lot to put, their blood, sweat, and tears on that court. And for this guy to do this 2 times now, it's a no-go. And for the people that say you can't question him, I mean, at the end of the day, y'all already gave him a pass last year. Dibs, if you had said something, they would have filleted you. But long story short, he's got to go. This is the 2nd time he's been mentally weak his entire career, and this is a sign of mental weakness, whether you like it or not.
Steven, thanks for the call. Here's what I would say about all that, because every one of us, whether we support Andrew or you're like Steven, where you're done, or anywhere in between, y'all need to admit there is a day where you will arrive where you jump ship.
On Andrew?
And you go from compassion to, I don't even know what to say about that guy. And I can give you all the examples. We did this. We were compassionate with Ben Simmons. And then one day everyone's like, I'm out. I don't know what to do with this. There was compassion, kind of, for Zion. And then there wasn't. And then he came back, and now he's good again. But you watch. You don't get unlimited chances.
What about Alden Smith?
There's another one.
A local example.
Yeah.
Because he was amazing, and then he was just troubled. And then he came back, and then he struggled. And then he had the incident with the DUI, and reportedly Colin Kaepernick and his girlfriend that Colin allegedly stole and then he went off the deep end. He had a automatic weapon. It's like, okay, the Niners are now done and fans are now done. Not that this is that, but to your point about fans getting to a breaking point with athletes, I don't think that we're there yet, but many people are jumping off the Andrew Wiggins ship. Some myself included.
Some are, yeah.
I think it's over.
V just hit us on YouTube. Willard, you're underestimating how many people are already there. Yeah, some of you are there. I'm not there, but I'm just acknowledging that the whole, like, the Warriors are good with it, and so are we, and we've got to be sympathetic for Andrew. I agree, because we don't know. But understand that there was a period of time where this is what you said about Antonio Brown. Like, God, I don't know what's going on. He's a talented player. You know, like, let's look at this through his perspective. I mean, 3 years later,
he became a Raider.
My God, the guy's an absolute maniac. So I'm not, you're right. I'm not saying this is where that's headed.
Right.
But you've all got a line. Everybody's is different. So I think those of you who are on the high horse of, oh, this is disgusting, if you show anything but compassion for Andrew Wiggins. Well, look, this is the second time. That's different. That's different than the first. Not in any critical way, but just in an availability sort of a way.
Right.
That's all it is. You got a job, you got to be available. You have to be available. And if you're not repeatedly, then an organization has a moment where they get to assess that.
Right. And part of the assessment is, what do you do? Because you have to pay this player $78 million over the next 3 years if he opts into his third-year deal, which, if I'm Andrew Wiggins and I want to stick around and, you know, even if I'm doing this on-again, off-again thing, my player op is 30.1 in 2026-27. So you get 26 next year, 28 the year after, and then an opt-in for 30, and you could play the shell game. I'm here for 2 months, and I'm out for a month, and maybe it's a couple of games, and you know, I'm a starter, I'm a reserve, whatever. I'm here enough to where I'm getting paid. I don't know what his motivation is. I don't know him well enough.
Nobody does.
Anybody knows him well enough to be able to decide. You would figure that Steve and Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob know him enough.
Yeah, I don't mean nobody. They know him. But he's not someone who allows the world to know him, and that's fine. And some people dig that. I am, like, at my core, I'm a big fan of the guy. I really am. I love what he can do on a basketball court. I also have a soft spot for people who don't smile a lot, but then when they do, it just lights up a room, partially because they don't. Steph Curry smiles every 4 minutes. So that's awesome. We're like, this guy just plays with incredible joy. But like a Wiggins smile, it's a little different. It hits different because you're like, oh, look at the teeth.
Yeah, he's got teeth. He's got teeth.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And so I hate that this is the conversation that is now starting to define the second half of Andrew Wiggins' Warriors career. I hate that.
Well, his whole career has been defined by, if you were going to put a punctuation mark next to his career, it would be a question mark. Steph Curry, exclamation point. Draymond Green would be a series of the, like those signs that you use.
A lot of emojis.
Well, no, the signs, the punctuation you use to mimic like profanity.
Oh, yeah, like just when you just put your hands all over and hit everything.
Yeah.
Shift key, all of them.
Yeah, and Klay Thompson's punctuation would be varied from, exclamation points early to sad faces to ... whatever. Andrew Wiggins, just a question mark. Number 1 overall. He's been good. He's been bad. He's been mediocre. He's been missing. And now he's become a little bit of an enigma in terms of his ability to even be available to play.
How about, come on, Mouse.
Come on, Mouse.
There it is. Scott and Marin. Hey, Scott, what's going on? You're with Willard and Dibs.
Hey, man. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great. Hey, I separate the issues into different categories here. One is Andrew Wiggins, the person. Everybody has compassion for somebody that's been, I've been through, some family situation, whatever it is.
We all have. Sure.
Right. But here's the difference. His job is different than normal jobs, right? Even Steve Kerr himself explained it beautifully one time when he says, we are asked the tough questions. We are criticized. We are analyzed up and down. And we're compensated for it. This is why you make the big bucks. You're part of the National Basketball Association. This is an ecosystem that has requirements beyond 48 minutes on the floor, okay? And my biggest problem with this is last year I had the compassion for him, no problem as far as not knowing what was going on. Who knows? Fine. But for this to happen again, at this time again, it's his teammates if I'm his teammate, that's where I have the biggest problem, or his coach. To say, you cannot put us in this situation of saying nothing. That does not work. And why they would go along with that, I'm not sure. But we have to say something. If it's hey, he's going to be out at least a couple of weeks. He's dealing with a personal matter. Okay, but this not knowing, just nothing. It does not work in this situation, in this workplace. And they do owe that to the fans. To say they don't is incorrect. They don't own the details. I don't need to know any details. I just need to know something.
Yeah, I don't know, Scott, thanks. I don't know. I don't quite see that the same way. I really don't. I always clam up whenever someone says they owe the fans and then fill in the blank, unless you're filling in the blank with a game. They owe the fans a game. If you bought a ticket, you go to the game, they should have one. Or they should give you your money back. But beyond that, the whole owe the fans thing, I don't really share that. But what I'm saying as far as why the Warriors might consider, or Andrew might consider saying something, is I just think that they end up making this harder for themselves. It's not for us. It's for them. You keep saying he's not here, like he's out for New York, but we expect him back, but we don't know when. Okay, right, how about Toronto? Well, no, not Toronto. Okay. How about Boston? Yes.
Is he even on the trip? Do we know?
These are the questions will grow as the time grows. And I think the Warriors would do themselves a favor if they would just pick some words that aren't that different, but would set the expectation in a little bit of a different spot.
Right.
Andrew's got something going on, and he's going to miss some time.
He needs a week.
Yeah. But then the problem is, then what do we do in a week? He needs some time.
Fine.
That's undefined.
I don't know if you've ever had this, but I've had days where I have been unable to come in and do the show to the best of my ability. So I've called our boss and said, Boss, I need a day. And he says, take a day. Let me know later today how you're feeling about tomorrow. And then you call him later in the day and you go, you know what? I need another day. And then you take that second day and that's it. And you come back, or you come back after a day. This indeterminate amount of time thing, it's doing the team a disservice.
I will also say, and I really respect everything that Scott Marin just said. I just see a lot of them a little bit differently. I totally get the emotions of where he's coming from. But the idea that Andrew, when we go, hey, you're getting paid $24 million, so you need to be there. I'm not going to fill in the blank with what I make, but I feel the same responsibility that Andrew does. I don't think that he needs to be at work more than the rest of us because he gets a lot of money. All of us signed up for whatever we do, and all of us, we all owe that to our employers and our teammates. That's just me, to give our all. And I don't know that that's not what's happening here, because I don't know necessarily, I don't know anything about what's going on.
Right.
All I know is the word choice that's being used right now really conjures up a lot of feelings from last year. Well, and that has a lot to do with why, for me, that has a lot to do with why I'm saying what I'm saying.
And all I know is that when fans who do bank on seeing their favorite players on the court, when fans don't know, they're going to be in a spot where they don't know what to do in terms of buying tickets or even supporting a team. It would be a lot easier as a fan if you knew exactly what to expect from your team based on players being in or out.